Ag360 offers a number of different forecasts and predictions based on the pasture, soil, and animal information you enter in the program and weather forecasts from the Bureau of Meteorology. The seasonal forecast and soil moisture prediction is found just above the map. Under the Rain and Soil Moisture tab, there are two charts for each individual paddock. The first chart shows the observed rainfall and irrigation for the last 40 days and the predicted rainfall and planned irrigation for the next 3 months on a cumulative basis. You can hover your mouse on the screen to view the values for each percentile band. This rainfall data is linked to the next chart below, which shows the predicted soil moisture for up to 60 or 100 centimetres of soil depth. Moving your cursor over the chart will show the value on the legend and the cumulative rainfall total on this date. If this soil moisture chart doesn't appear, use the Recalculate Soil Moisture button at the top of the screen. This will refresh the models. Use the arrows on the right to hide or display charts for the other paddocks. Under the Yearly Comparison tab, you can compare this year's rainfall to that of the last 30 years for a selected date range. The black line is this year's observed rainfall and the prediction for the rest of the year, and the red line is the year that you're comparing to. You can select the year that you want to compare it to and also use your arrow keys on your keyboard to scroll through the years. The Predictions and Risks button will take you to a new screen and will begin calculating your predictions using the latest weather forecasts and information that you've entered. The calculations can take up to a couple of minutes, depending on the number of paddocks and mobs. Your internet connection will also have a big impact on how quickly these are calculated. The risk grid is arranged with paddocks and the mobs in rows, and the corresponding risks going across the page in the columns. The different symbols indicate whether you're at risk of not meeting a target. If an NA symbol appears, try refreshing your page before checking your settings. A green tick indicates that everything's looking okay, whereas an orange eye or a red triangle suggests that you may be at risk of not meeting your targets. The first prediction available is the pasture availability for the whole farm. Click on the symbol to view the prediction. The vertical axis displays the pasture availability in kilograms of dry matter per hectare, and the date is shown on the horizontal axis. Pasture availability is the amount of feed left over after animal intake and pasture growth have been taken into account. Any unused pasture from one day is carried over to the next day. The solid black line represents the past, and the dotted line and the grey shading shows the predicted pasture availability for the next 6 months. Because weather forecasting is not an exact science, there are a number of possible weather scenarios. Ag360 runs the model for each scenario to generate the likely range of outcomes. These results are presented as percentiles. Under Options, check the box to display the extreme cases. And now showing are the 5th and 95th percentiles. The 5th percentile represents a very low rainfall and/or extreme temperature scenario, whereas the 95th percentile represents higher rainfall with ideal growing conditions. The dotted line is the 50th percentile, which is the middle of the range. It's also known as the median. Ag360 alerts are sent to you based on how your target compares to this 50th percentile. If you do have a target, it will appear as a red dot on the chart. Keep in mind that the 50th percentile is no more likely to occur than the 95th percentile, so when interpreting the predictions, it's important to consider the entire range of percentiles that are shown. Take note of the difference between the highest and lowest percentile. Where there's only a very small difference, you can be more confident in this prediction compared to where there is a very large difference, which would indicate greater uncertainty around the weather forecasts. As you build up a history in Ag360, you'll be able to scroll back in time to see your historical measurements for pasture availability as well. You can also check your current stocking rate against the predicted pasture availability. Select a pasture target and a date. And Ag360 will calculate the number of DSC you can carry compared to your current stocking rate for each percentile. You can close this box to go back to the main risk grid, or scroll down to see the other paddocks and mobs. Click on the heading or the arrow to view or hide the other charts. To quickly access a prediction for a paddock, expand the paddock summary to view the pasture availability for each individual paddock. Depending on the species and stock class, predictions will be calculated for pasture, weight, condition score, heat, shorn sheep, lambing, flies, and worms. The pasture availability prediction is the pasture available to that mob for the grazing rotation you have entered. In this example, there are quite dramatic changes in pasture availability as the sheep move from one paddock to the next, and the total amount of pasture in each paddock differs quite a lot. This chart allows you to assess the feed availability for this mob based on your planned mob movements without needing to click on each individual paddock chart. If you do want to look at each paddock individually, go back to the risk grid and click on the arrow next to the mob name, and you'll be able to see the paddocks that are within the mob's rotation. The next prediction is for weight. The first chart is the predicted average weight of the mob, with the target live weight shown in red. Just like the pasture availability, you can display the extreme cases to see a wider range of possible outcomes. The black line is the live weight, and the blue line is the carcass weight. In this example, the live weight of the mob is falling well below the target. Below this is the predicted GR fat depth for sheep, which can be used to estimate fat score. On the right is the estimated live weight distribution of the mob. Ag360 estimates the number of animals within a chosen live weight range on a selected date. In this example, on the 8th of January, Ag360 is predicting that I will have 81 animals within 60 to 80 kilos, but do take note of the confidence level as well. If the mob has not been weighed for some time, then the confidence in the estimated numbers will be low. This chart is quite useful for estimating the number of stock that will be within a set weight range for sale, or the number of animals that might be in the tail of a mob that could need additional feeding. The next prediction is for condition score, and this will only be available for breeding ewes. Condition score is calculated from the mature weight at condition score 3 and the fleece weight entered when creating the stock class, as well as the current live weight. So if the condition score prediction doesn't quite match with what you're seeing on farm, make sure you check these settings first. As for live weight, you can also set targets for condition score. To go back to your property map, you can either use the button on the top left or click on your username to access the property map or more options.